Hello and welcome to Bookmas Day 2. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos so far. Today we are coming in hot with my November wrap up. It was definitely a better month out of this year. I read 10 books this month. The first book that I read was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Now, Gatlin City is completely overrun with anarchists when you find Nova, a young prodigy who witnesses her entire family get murdered. Years later, Nova decides that she is going to go undercover in the Renegades, who are the heroes that took the city back from the anarchists. Her goal is to infiltrate this group, that way her anarchist friends who've raised her have a better chance of overthrowing the Renegades. This is the first book I think I've ever read that has superheroes in it, which I was so excited about. It's such a unique concept. I love superheroes. I love Marvel, so I was very excited by the premise of this book. And I love Marissa Myers and her writing. I love her characters. Even the characters who are branded as the villains have likable characteristics. I also think that the conflict in this story is very complex. It's not as cut and dry as you would kind of think it should be, which is interesting and very intriguing. I rated this book a 4 stars, but I definitely see this as a potential 5-star series for me. Then I read Fearful by Lauren Roberts. This book takes place during the same time as Fearless, but you're following things from Kit's point of view. This book did not need to exist, point blank, period. It opened up a lot of questions that really didn't need to be asked, and it was purely for Lauren Roberts to have the opportunity to write more books in this series answering said questions. I was following along until about 80% into the book, and then things took a sharp turn to crazy, and I didn't understand anything that was going on. The characters began acting in a way that didn't align with the characters that had been built up through the rest of the book, and it just confused me so much. Honestly, I am not really sure if I am going to read any more books that Lauren Roberts writes in this series, just because this one was so out of pocket and out of left field that it didn't really align with the rest of the series that I have loved. I give this a 2 stars. Then I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Evangeline is having a rough time. She has lost both of her parents, and now the love of her life is set to marry someone else. So she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts to stop the wedding in exchange for her giving him 3 kisses at any time he wants them. Upon the giving of the first kiss, she realizes that she is in way over her head, and making deals with fates is way more dangerous than she had anticipated. I get nervous to read certain books, okay? Mostly books that I have built up in my head and convinced myself that I'm going to love. I get nervous to read them because I don't know if I'm gonna love them as much as I think I will. And so this is definitely one of those books, but I actually really enjoyed reading it. I had previously read the Carvel trilogy by Stephanie Garber, so I was already familiar with the world and the way that she writes her stories. And so I was very intrigued and enraptured by this book. I would be reading the book and I would look up and an hour had passed and I was like, wait, what's happening? I gave this book a 4 stars, but I definitely see this as another potential 5-star series. The Boxcar Children. This book opens on 4 siblings who have just moved into a new house with their alcoholic father, and the next day he is dead. And their only living family is their grandfather, who they are convinced is going to hate them and treat them terribly. So they run away in the middle of the night so they don't have to go live with him, until they stumble upon a boxcar that they decide to make their home. Pretty dark for a children's novel, right? This is a book I used to love when I was a kid. I just had such a fun time rereading this and reminiscing on the time when I used to read this book and love it. I didn't rate this book just because it's a former favorite. I don't really want to rate rereads. The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. Rich old Mr. Westing has passed away and named 16 seemingly unrelated people in his will as potential heirs, meaning they have to compete to solve his murder to see who is going to inherit his estate. This is another childhood favorite of mine, and it definitely is the reason why I love stories such as Knives Out and the Inheritance games, because they are very similar in storylines. This book really showed me how different it is to read a book as an adult versus when you were a child, because I picked up so many things in this book upon this reread that I definitely did not catch when I was younger. I didn't rate this one either. Heist Society. Kat Bishop was raised in a career criminal family, and she is away at school when she is faced with her biggest conflict yet. A very rich, very dangerous man has just had all of his art stolen, and the only suspect is Kat's father, and it falls upon her shoulders to save him. This is another childhood favorite of mine. It's almost as if I was making a video about that or something. This one I really had not read since I used to love it as a 6th grader. It's almost like I was reading it for the first time again. It's a shorter novel than the books I typically read, but I think that made for a better story because Allie Carter was way more intentional with the things that she put into her book. But again, I didn't rate this one either. Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Ethan has been haunted for the past 30 years. Haunted by the memory, or lack thereof, of the night when he was camping in the backyard with his best friend when his friend disappeared and was never seen again. Now, 30 years later, Ethan is back in that home and things are unraveling and he's having to face things that he never thought he would have to. I love Riley Sager's writing, I really do. Now that I think about it, all of the books that I've read of his center around a past crime, which I think makes them a little bit more palatable to read compared to other thrillers because they don't keep me up at night. They're not terrifying me to my bones. This book isn't exactly fast-paced, but it does continue to move along swiftly, which I think does keep me more interested. I gave this book a 3 stars. The 12 Holidates by Emma St. Clair. Taylor has just had her heart broken by her boyfriend right before the holidays, but she had all of these Christmas-themed dates planned for him, so her best friend Weston decides that the best way for Taylor to begin moving forward is for the two of them to complete the dates together, because that's normal. I am always impressed when I read a Christmas novella by Emma St. Clair and I actually believe in the romance. There are times when authors can't even do that in full-length novels. So I love reading Emma St. Clair's writing. I love her characters and the relationships that she builds between them, and I gave this a 3.5 stars. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is the 2nd book in the When in Rome series. Annie has always been pictured as a goody two-shoes, an angel, the sweetest girl you'll ever met. However, she struggles a lot with dating. Enter Will Griffin. He is the bodyguard for famous singer Ray Rose. He has no problem with dating. He ends up coaching Annie in her dating so that way she can go out and find her husband. I really enjoyed this book. I have read 2 books by Sarah Adams and they give a very Gilmore Girls vibe. It takes place in a small town where everybody knows everybody. So she writes in all of these side characters that have their own personalities, their own quirks. I feel like in a lot of books, side characters kind of get thrown in for plot progression, but then they kind of get forgotten about later. But no, these side characters play a part to the very end, and I just love that about these books. I'm not gonna really say any more because I do have a reading vlog coming out of me reading this book. I rated this a 4 stars. Then the last book that I read this month was Faking the Fall by Julie Christianson. Now, Hadley and James were college friends until the day when James was discovered by a talent agent and he jets off to LA with no word to Hadley and they haven't spoken since. Several years later, Lincoln James is starring in a very famous superhero movie franchise when his reputation and his private life are in jeopardy. So he and his team devise a plan that in order to distract the paparazzi from his private life, he and Hadley are going to fake date to give them something to focus on. I really enjoyed this book. It's the 4th book in the Sweater Weather series, which takes place in Harvest Hollow, that I have grown to adore through this series and also the Appies series. It was a very fast-paced book and I found myself just reading it so long. As soon as I was in, and next thing you know, it's been an hour and I have not even noticed the time passing. I loved the relationship that was developing between these 2 characters and how you really got to see how their minds were working throughout all of the events of this book. I am excited to read more of Julie Christianson's books because this is the first one that I've read by her. So I gave this one a 4 stars. Those are all of the books that I read in November. That is all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up to let me know that you enjoy this type of content. Comment down below your favorite book that you read in November and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content in the future. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week and I will see you guys next time. Bye.